name is Gabriella Deyi, and I am the host of LogiTalk here at Logitech. Welcome to our 5th episode of LogiTalk. I want to start off by honoring May as Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, a celebration of Asians and Pacific Islanders in the United States. With that said, the broad term of Asian Pacific deserves a breakdown, so quick geography lesson, bear with me here. Asian Pacific encompasses all of the Asian continent and the Pacific islands of Melanesia, like New Guinea, New Caledonia, Fiji, and the Solomon Islands. Micronesia, like Guam, Wake Island, Palau, Marshall Islands, and the Federated States of Micronesia. And Polynesia, like New Zealand, the Hawaiian Islands, the Midway Islands, Samoa, American Samoa, Tonga, and the Cook Islands. Like most commemorative months, Asian Pacific Heritage Month originated with Congress. The month of May was chosen to commemorate the immigration of the first Japanese to the U.S. on May 7, 1843, and to mark the anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad on May 10, 1869. The majority of the workers who laid the tracks were Chinese immigrants. With that background, May is a month to highlight and uplift BIPOC voices, which is why I'm so excited to talk to our guest today. Last year, our streaming branch here at Logitech Streamlabs started an initiative. That initiative is called Creators for BIPOC, and its mission is to give a minimum of $1 million over the next 10 years to organizations that are addressing racial inequality with creation. That initiative has taken off, and one of those organizations that received the benefit of that is WeXL. WeXL is a nonprofit that empowers those who belong to underrepresented groups to harness media and passionately tell their stories in a variety of ways. The founder of this remarkable organization is who I am lucky enough to sit down with today. In addition to being the founder and CEO of WeXL, Arabella is a writer, a host, a former journalist, a former production assistant on some very notable productions we all know, like ABC's The View, an actress, an oil painting artist, a short filmmaker, a Rutgers graduate, a San Francisco Bay Area resident, and a proud Filipino American. Hi, Arabella. Welcome to LogiTalk.
Hi, Gabby.
How are you?
Thank you. And you forgot one thing.
What did I forget?
You forgot that I'm your friend.
Yes, that is true.
And I'm so proud of you. Thank you for that wonderful intro. I'm getting like tears in my eyes because I'm so just proud of you.
Oh my
Thank you for
gosh,
having
thank you. Yes, we have known each other for close to 4 years now. And
Yeah.
we won't go over that story about how we met because it is so long and intricate, but I'm very grateful to know you. You met me at the start of my career, and so I owe a lot to you, and I actually am very, very grateful that we could have this conversation because you are one of my role models for following your passions and following your dreams.
Thank you, Gabby.
So we're going to just jump right in. Arabella, you have one of the most impressive resumes that I have ever seen. And I think the most impressive part about it is how diverse it is. Your accolades scream, I followed my passions no matter what. And it's incredibly inspiring to see where you started from to where you are today. So I have to ask, who you are today, and who you are today, is that who you thought you would be as a young girl, and where did your story begin?
So I believe now, where this present moment, I am who I've always wanted to be and more. And it's been a journey. It's been quite a journey from immigrating to the United States when I was very young. I couldn't speak English, and so I just swore I'm going to learn English, and I ended up being an English and political science major at Rutgers. And I think as an immigrant, I have what you told. We had this conversation before, Gabby, but that grit, and I'm very proud of that grit. But one of the things that I've learned, and just even recently, is how to be a bit more vulnerable and connected and sensitive especially because I'm in a work that requires that. And then I'm not just talking about causes and nonprofits, but I'm talking about storytelling and why it's important to be vulnerable and let yourself, connect to feelings that you may not want to be feeling. And because of that grit that I developed as an immigrant, brown woman immigrant, I sometimes it's hard for me to connect to vulnerability. I sometimes I'm just like, I'm going to just power on through. But now, as an adult, I've learned to, be able to let myself be more vulnerable.
I love that you mentioned that because I do think that that is the common thread with storytellers, right? We all tend to be afraid of our vulnerability, but we're brave enough to get past that fear, tap into it, and tell these stories that people connect to, and that really help them dig deeper into life lessons. Understandings of other people that they may not be able to get walking through their own lives daily. And so that makes me think about what was your inspiration to start WeXL, because really the foundation of your organization is to help underrepresented groups use media as a source, as a way to tell stories to other people and just relate to other people in a common goal to bring the world together.
Yes, it's actually, of course, that's why we started it, is to help underrepresented groups to tell their stories. But what I've realized is that what we really want to achieve is unity and belonging and understanding and relating to each other, regardless of what we look like or our experiences. So like myself, the organization has grown in ways that I didn't expect. And I went through a different journey, or the same journey, but it was its own. And one of the things that I've realized is, you know, we all have this, the secret to everything is that our passion, purpose, and story. Those are three of the four pillars of our organization. The fourth being unity, and it's all about, I help everyone with their, personally, I like to help and encourage people to find their passion, their purpose, and their story. So I don't know if I answered your question.
I think you did a great job. I
Did I
think
suck
that's
into
what
it?
inspired you to start, and I think that will help
Yeah.
people understand more of how We Excel exactly works. I know that there's quite a few amazing success stories to come out of the program, and I want to talk about those later. But I really want you to expand on the mentorship that happens between those that come into the program and those that support the program, because that's a really unique system that a lot of people in media don't understand: mentorship.
Yes, it's cool that you mentioned that, because when I was growing up, I didn't really have anybody to look up to. I had thought that maybe Connie Chung was someone I would look up to, but I never really liked news, local news, or just even news in general, even though I'm a former print journalist, but that's just another thing. But in terms of, like, looking up and seeing, someone who looked like me, it's still very difficult to do that. So I started realizing that mentors can be someone who doesn't look like me, and someone who doesn't have the same experiences that I thought I would need to have in order to get to X, right, to a destination. So for We Excel, what I've realized as we go through our programs and see the impact of our programs, I realized that mentorship is, first of all, a two-way street, that the mentee and the mentor both get the great experiences from, actually participating in the program together. And also, for example, I'm just going to give a very specific example. My dear friend, Seth Grossman, he's a filmmaker. He actually went to NYU film school, and he won the Tribeca Film Festival with his short film out of NYU. And he came in and he taught our boundless youth girls. They're from the school, an all girls school in the Bronx, how to do filmmaking. And it was a
Wow.
master class in filmmaking. These girls are 11 years old. And when we had our feedback and program assessment later in 5 months after, the insights from the girls and what they remembered everything, not everything, of course, but they remembered so much of what Seth said, which was very technical. And then, you were one of the mentors too, Gabby, and you can even speak to that, right? What did you get out of mentoring these little girls? They talked about how much you inspired them to keep going despite the hardships that they may face getting bullied as young girls. And, what did you think about the mentorship of
Yeah,
that
I
program?
think I love that you brought up Boundless because that was one of the successes that came out of the partnership with Streamlabs and that grant. You were able to really start that program for inner city girls and teach them things like filmmaking and teach them things like confidence and when you belong to an underrepresented group like you and myself, you have to find your mentors in several different places, and you have to start being okay with your mentor not looking like you. And so that's a superpower once you realize that because you're able to really cultivate this diverse understanding of the world and figure out what your place is in it and then output this amazing content that's creative, inspiring, unique, and can touch so many different people because of who you were touched by. And when I did speak to the girls in Boundless, I think I saw myself in each one of them. And so it was incredibly exciting to share what I know and then just sit back and see how they related that to their own lives and will transform that into their storytelling and their creation just by that connection that we had and me sharing my story and them relating that to their own. So I'm glad that you brought all those components into it because WeXL is a program like that where you pair people with underrepresented groups and you just allow that magic to take place and to expand. Um, and I think that even brings me to my next question because when you do that, I think sometimes what can come up is the struggles that artists and creatives face, right? You start to see that more when you create these partnerships and when you create these opportunities. So I want to know what are some struggles that you've seen out in the field in this line of work when it comes to storytelling and creatives? What are some of the struggles that they face, especially underrepresented creatives and storytellers?
Well, lack of support, I think, is one. I think that having to do everything yourself because maybe you're not able to communicate your vision as well as you um, need to in order for other people to take you seriously.
Mm.
I think that's definitely something I've experienced working in media and then also technology. And also just this sort of demand of for creators to constantly be in front of the camera and be pushing out content to get on top of the algorithms. I think that's a lot of pressure. And then if you want to, get out of that sort of specific topic that made you a sort of thought leader on YouTube, it's difficult, right? Because your audience wants a specific thing from you, and that can be seen also in all, being typecast in Hollywood. So I think that those are very difficult things for people to get over, though I do see that there's an opportunity there to realize that it's not about where people want to put you. It's about how you yourself can really tap into your sense of self and be able to let that shine to other people, regardless of how they think you should be, where you should be belonging. Only you can say, this is where I belong, this is who I am. And so I think that there is an opportunity there, though, despite the hardship of being a creator these days.
It's great to hear you say that because I think what you're really saying is this struggle to stay true and stay authentic. in a world that's pulling you in so many different directions. How do you find your authentic voice, and how do you find your story in all of it? So how do you believe that artists and creatives and storytellers can stay true and authentic to who they are in the current social media space? Because I heard you bring up YouTube, and that's a big one
Yeah,
nowadays. That's a big one where you just see people
yeah.
going in multiple different directions, and that would be hard to jump into authentically.
Oh yes. Just don't get it caught in the mess. And I, when I think about it, we don't have a lot of followers on WeXL, even if we try so hard to get them. And to me, as long as we're really proud of the messaging and the storytelling that we're doing and the people that we're gathering, uh, I'm not looking for that sort of like wildfire scalable hockey stick model that startups, which I've worked in startups before, are looking for. It's just keep on, staying true to yourself is, I mean, I know you're asking me, how do you stay true to yourself? Well, be kind to yourself and know that, you know, it's going to take a while. And even if it takes a while, just keep at it and do what you love. Again, I'm going to go back to the passion, and your purpose, which is beyond yourself. And then you sprinkle it with magic, which is your own story and experiences, and just stay to that model, and you'll be okay. Don't get discouraged.
I love that advice. I think that was something that was lacking when I was younger, and hearing that. And uh, you and I both had really windy paths in life. You've had a lot of careers. I have as well, going from a chemist to a journalist, dabbling in beauty pageants. And so to hear someone say, just stay true to your passions, I think that's something that a lot of young people need to hear and to be inspired by, and to just see people actually doing, which is why I love your organization so much, because everyone that comes in and works with you, they all have a passion, and you bring that to the forefront of who they are, and they're able to really just live through that authentically. So even in some of our conversations, I've heard you say we need to empower those who are underserved to think creatively. What do you mean by that?
As you mentioned, one of the things that I do is I'm an oil painter. It's something that I discovered later in life, and I so much love it. And I try not to do it as a business, I just do it for myself. So, one of the things that I realize is sometimes I can overwork a painting. You're too close to the painting, right? And so, why it's important for specifically underrepresented people to think creatively is because they need to know that even if they're stuck in the, you know, day-to-day grind of things. And I'm specifically talking about not just underrepresented, but because you're underrepresented in the media, you're almost likely also to be having other hardships because of
Right.
such underrepresentation, right? We can tie that into it. So if you're just, in like, too close, and you're just grinding away, right? You're going to miss the big picture. So I always tell people, like, part of, kind of this idea of creative productivity is to step back, look at the painting, look at the big picture, so that you can think outside of the box, so that you don't get caught up in it. And the reason why that's really important for people who are underrepresented, or, are economically disadvantaged, is because, if you stop dreaming, if and dreaming and imagining and thinking creatively, you're going to miss out on that, and you're going to miss out on opportunities that could get you out of this sort of, like, too close and too tunnel vision, and you're going to get stuck in that situation. So I say that because it's a way to not only survive, but also to thrive beyond your situation.
That's a really good point. I think we forget that a lot. When you are an underrepresented group, you want to almost fit in and do things the way that everyone else before you has done them. But your superpower is doing them completely differently so that you can stand out and really excel and create a path for yourself and others who are coming behind you to do the same. So, thinking outside of the box always, I think everyone should do that, but especially those who are underrepresented because we don't have a blueprint most of the time.
You're carving your own path, and you have to be okay with that. You're gonna have to, at one point, you're gonna realize that, oh my goodness, I'm the only one doing this.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's why people don't understand what you're doing. That's a realization I've had in the
yeah.
past.
That's such a good point. And you used to work in tech, and I know that you said you felt
Yeah.
that as a creative you dealt with imposter syndrome while in the sector, and I know others who are forging their own paths deal with that as well. So as more creatives, from influencers to journalists like myself, become a part of the tech world, what can we all do you think, to create healthy spaces for them?
So first, be healthy yourself. Um, I cannot uh, say that enough. You can't help other people unless you yourself are healthy, or you can try to help them, but it's going to be disastrous eventually, because you really want to maintain that balance for yourself. And that imposter syndrome I felt while I was in tech was because I wasn't healthy. And I had to step away in 2016 to do a sort of sabbatical. And I went back to school. I started taking classes at City College of San Francisco. They were incredible classes. That's where I learned oil painting. That's where I took up some narrative filmmaking classes. And it really it changed who I am. It helped me understand myself. And I had already had the idea for WeXL then, and I was kind of slowly piecing things together. But without that time to really get healthy and understand what my passion and what my purpose is and how my story fits into all of that, I wasn't able to help the way I am now. It's because I'm a much healthier person than I was in 2016.
And do you think that maybe people who are in tech, and as these two worlds of creativity and tech align, do you maybe think there's some space for education in there on both ends for creatives to learn about tech and for those who are more tech centered to learn about creatives so that when they are coming together, we can figure out how to work together to innovate?
Absolutely. I love technology. I love technology as a creative. I think that it has done wonders for the creative industries, and technology itself, tech companies need to have more creatives in them, because it's not, as you can see, you can do the, like, piece together widgets and gadgets and things like that, but really what matters, and going back to why creativity is important for underrepresented communities, it's really about the creative thinking. That's what they pay people for, right? In Hollywood, why do people get paid so much money? It's because of their creativity, their
Right.
storytelling skills. And so, the artists of the world that do make a lot of money, right? Granted, there's a business side of that, and there's politics, like anything. But, I don't even look at art and creativity anymore in a sort of, I have to make money into this. I see it the other way around. I see that my artistic side, my creative side helps me make more money. It really has up leveled my study of art at City College, has helped me up level everything that I do as a businesswoman.
That makes a lot of sense because even here at Logitech, it's for us, design is so important, and that takes a lot of creativity, and designing for different types of people and for different types of things is what we have fun doing. And I wish that type of creativity and design was embraced a lot more because that's what moves the world forward. That innovation, that outside of the box thinking, that incorporating design with technology, this type of acceleration forward is remarkable, really. And it's human nature, I think. It's human nature to do that. So
Yes.
to stay true to that is really important. We've talked about storytelling and how important that is, but I guess I want to ask you the question, the question very upfront.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's so important, given that you based your whole nonprofit off of it?
Oh man, yeah, absolutely. Well, okay, so I'm going to be honest. I think it was 2017 when Ornell Caesar, our first Excellence in Residence Fellow, came to visit, and then we set him up with, with a to showcase his thought leadership as a software engineer who's formerly incarcerated. You know his story, Gabby. Well, when we went to Google to help him tour, our advisor at Google was like, hey, I think what you really do is storytelling. And it's so weird. I do not know why prior to her saying this, Michelle Smith, she's incredible, incredible woman at Google. Um, I don't know why I was so apprehensive about using the word story and storytelling, but I realize now. So one of my businesses prior to WeXL was a live webcasting production company that served large nonprofits like the Women's Conference, DoSomething.org, and also the Hands On Network. And what I noticed is that back then, about 10 years ago, they were talking about storytelling for impact.
Hmm.
And there was a sort of this it kind of backfired because it was inauthentic. And I didn't realize until Michelle said, "You do storytelling." Did I just heal around that word? And now I love it. Now I see how now it's everything. Now it is we excel. We say stories unite us. Together we excel. And because that's how we relate to each other,
Hmm.
since we're still connected to the cave people that put their handprints on the cave walls. We're connected to them because of that story with their hand, right?
Right.
We're humans. It's what connects us, storytelling.
Yeah, that's an incredible thought. It's hard to conceptualize in our day to day how linked we are to the past. And when you put it that way, our link to the past is storytelling. And that's a hard word for us to wrap our mind around because it's so broad. But it is so intricate into who we each are, and it's why we need it's why we need technology essentially to spread what we do to the world.
But it also causes problems, right?
It
Like, I mean, if you don't, it can, because if you're not responsible as a storyteller, what kind of misinformation can you spread? And we've seen this so much. The way that technology has accelerated the ability to spread information and is crazy. It all spreads like wildfire. So we have to be, again, coming back to ourselves and our own responsibility, our own social responsibility, our own self responsibility is important as we are storytellers, each and every one of us, not just me and you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And being authentic, and I know that word has been said a lot, but I believe in the core truth of that. If your message is authentic, it will spread and it will spread positively. So thank you for bringing up that point. I think we can switch gears a little bit because earlier I mentioned that you are a proud Filipino American. Shout out to all the Filipinas and the Filipinos listening. Earlier, you spoke about your heritage.
Pinay power.
Yeah. Earlier, you spoke about your heritage and that you're an immigrant. And being an immigrant to the U.S. at such a young age is a unique experience in and of itself. And Filipino culture is also incredibly unique. So, how did your heritage shape you?
It is me. As much as I have tried to run away from it, it's so who I am. I think there was a lot of trauma in I think being a Filipino for me carries some trauma and not just pride. and I had to, kind of work through that as an adult, because growing up, I just wanted to um, be American and assimilate. And then also, as I auditioned for roles, things like that. Now, being a Filipino, it's like, you look kind of, you're dark, you don't look like too Asian, but you don't really you're not Mexican, but what are you? And it's very confusing
Yeah.
to some people, because we are so, um, you know, different than other Asian countries. I mean, we have last names that are Spanish, right?
Yeah.
So I think I never realized how much this sort of the colonialism has created trauma for uh, the people of the Philippines. And I have, again, only recently been able to forgive the Filipino people, right, including myself, for acting a certain way, for celebrating lighter skinned, for celebrating the mestizos and the mestizas look, and for celebrating things like smaller noses. I have one of those, and people always say, like, "Oh, you have such a nice nose." Well, why? Because it's you. You think it looks so Western, and but then I also got the other thing too, like, you're so dark, and oh, do you ever want to? I have a family member who asked, do you ever wanted to get any plastic surgery on your lips so that they're not so
Wow.
big?
Wow.
And I'm like, girl, you know how much money people pay for this lift? Come
I
on,
didn't think we would go into this
you
conversation,
know?
but I think you're touching on something that's very unique to not only the immigrant experience, but uh, what it's like to assimilate as an immigrant, and especially as an Asian American. The diaspora is so diverse. It doesn't look like just one type of phenotype. And so trying to assimilate while being from such a diverse group in a country that maybe has one view of what Asian Americans are supposed to look like, I can see how that can be incredibly difficult.
Yeah, sometimes it still is, but you know what the opportunity here is. I love the opportunity. It's 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 the fact that the gift that I got out of realizing that Filipinos may not fit in a certain way in the characters that are out there. What I realize is that it means I have to write them.
Mm,
It means I have to be the showrunner, putting that character there,
yeah.
right? And so, I mean, that's my dream eventually, is to be a showrunner, a filmmaker, and make these stories that I've never seen told at all.
And in the process, teaching other young people to do the same with their differences, which is remarkable. That,
Whoever they are, they don't have to be Filipinos. They
right,
just
right.
everyone is
It's
has a story to tell.
Yeah, it's using your obstacles and what you've uncovered about yourself that's been very difficult to help others do the same, and to really see, like, okay, someone hasn't done this. I can be the first to do this, and I can do it just by telling my story, which is incredibly empowering. Um, and speaking of the AAPI community and how diverse that is, and the struggles that they are facing right now internationally, what are some of the ways that you think we can all support that community right now and continuously in the future?
I think it's just, listen to our stories. And I think that there's so many, right? And because, like, Asia is a huge
Yeah,
continent. I mean, you talked about what geography it encompasses. I mean, you're talking about even India, which has billions of people. Um, that's included in that.
right.
So I think understanding that there are so many, it is ripe for a lot of stories there, and listening to those stories from your friends and seeing how you can help amplify those stories yourself. If you currently, right now, there's the Center for Asian American in Media,
Mhm.
their film festival, Cam Fest, and we just talked to the cast and crew of Junho, and they're premiering their feature film there, and it's happening right now. So I would say go to CamFest. It's online because of the pandemic,
Yeah.
and buy a ticket and watch some movies about Asian Americans, and that's a good way to support, and it's fun. It doesn't have to be so hard all the time, right? To
Right.
support.
Right. That's a good point. I think so often, yeah, so often supporting can sometimes feel difficult because you think that you have to enter a negative space to do it. And by all means, sometimes it's just educating yourself on a different culture and the vastness of a culture so that you can come to an understanding of how different it is and and how they may need help in different ways, and you can't help one community the same way that you help another. And so you bringing that up in a simple activity like film watching and supporting different artists that are of the community is so enlightening for many to hear.
Yes, we actually just wanted to mention too, we're one of the executive producers of Proud, which is Rena Dutt's film. She met her lead actress, who's Mikey Steiner Killian, and it's a short film about Mikey's experience as a South Korean adoptee. She was
Wow.
adopted by white parents, and she grew up here in the US and as an American. And she said, one of the things I remember is this little boy asking me, "Hey, where are you from?" And she said, "Well, I'm from here." And then her little brother's like, "Yeah, her big brother's like, yeah, she's from here." And the little boy's like, "No, really, we get that a lot as Asian Americans. No, really, where are you from?"
Yeah.
Um, and we decided to be executive producers of this film because Rena's work is absolutely spectacular, and I'm looking forward to seeing her grow and rooting for her as an Asian American filmmaker. So,
That's
and actress, she's also an actress.
that's
She's
great.
awesome.
Yeah, because there's very in Hollywood and in the U.S. There seems to be very little representation in film and media, and that lack of representation seems to lead to real life consequences, like negative stereotypes and not allowing people to understand how different and how vast the Asian diaspora, Asian and Pacific Islander diaspora is. So, simple microaggressions like, where are you from? can be a common question for Asian Americans that have immigrated here many, many years ago, or even those who are born here. So those stories are very incredibly important to tell, and especially with young people. So, what is your advice to those young people that want to follow in the footsteps of you and other filmmakers and storytellers when they essentially don't have the blueprint? Where do they start? I mean, do they come to an organization like WeXL? Do they start studying maybe the few filmmakers that they've seen? Like, how do they start that process?
Pen and paper.
Mm.
One of the stories I want to tell that I want to turn into feature film. I remember it's World War II Philippines, and I interviewed my grandfather who has since passed, and it was just me as a 12-year-old child, like writing on loose leaf paper and talking to my grandfather, and I still read it today, and I'm like, wow, I need to use this as an adult. This
Right.
was 11-year-old me. Like, wow, I was smart, or 12-year-old. I don't know how old I was, but I was not older than fifth grade, right? And that's it. That's all you need. This is the thing. I mean, I love production equipment. I mean, that's why I love Logitech. I mean, I have five, five Logitech old cameras that I've used, webcams that I've used, and I'm hoping that my friend Will Kirkpatrick hears this and sends me a Mevo. Mevo is a Logitech camera. But anyway, you don't have to get caught up on that thing, is what I'm trying to say. It's pen to paper, write down your story, even if you cannot write. I have to say this story. So when I was in LA, I lived there for 6 years. I got together a group that's actually very similar, like WeXL. It was called You Are Gen Y. And one of my co-founders was Chelsea Cannell. Chelsea Cannell is this brilliant uh, TV host whose father is Stephen J. Cannell, who has since passed. And Stephen J. Cannell is this incredible like creator of multiple shows in the 80s and early 90s, from like 21 Jump Street,
Yeah.
he met, he discovered Johnny Depp, to like the commish, to the A Team, right, Mr.
Wow.
T,
Yeah, those are big
and many
movies.
many others. Incredible. But Stephen J. Cannell had dyslexia, and for all his life he was told he was stupid, until someone in college told him, a professor said, I don't care if you can't spell 2 words together. You just got to keep on writing and putting your ideas down because your stories are incredible. You don't even need to know how to spell cat. Just find a way to tell your story and put it down and record it. And then, eventually he became like a gazillionaire and had 25 secretaries translating his dyslexia.
Right.
So, I, pen to paper.
Pen to paper. I like that. Yeah, I think even myself, I forget sometimes to just write down what has happened in my life so I can go back and reflect on it, because you never know how valuable that can be to your healing or to someone else's story. You just never know. So I love that. I see a question that I think stuck out to me a lot, which we may have answered in some way, but I would love to answer it more specifically. Uh, the question said, being a Filipino American myself, you're always told to be a nurse or a doctor. How do you think outside the box when culturally our passion is frowned upon? How do I explain it without being offensive to?
Disrespectful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, such a great point.
I knew what was gonna
That's
happen.
such a great point,
I
because
knew what
I
was gonna
think
happen.
every immigrant
Disrespectful.
child experiences this with their parents. And this is a great question, I think, that you can answer because you work with a lot of first generation children and a lot of
Right.
people who are immigrants and want to tell their stories and live out their passions.
Absolutely. So we actually have worked with the Cal State LA students for a while. There we have them as interns for a semester through one of our board members who's a professor there. And what I noticed is that they have a lot of responsibilities. Usually they have a full course load, they have the internship, and then they also work 40 hours.
Wow.
And, you know, I think understanding where your parents or your family members come from, and they just want to know that you're okay, that you can afford to to not you're not starving, you're not on the streets, that you can take care of yourself. So when I was a kid, I didn't realize that. I was just like, I'm the kind of person who's like, I don't care, I'm going to do what I want, right? And so not everyone's like that, not everyone's like me. So I know a Filipino, actually he was my wedding photographer, and he's an RN in Chicago. And I met him because he did a profile on me when I was my other jobs, when I was producing Tech Week in Chicago, and I hired him because I loved his work. But one of the things he said it's really difficult to do both, being an RN and photography. But photography is what I love to do. Without photography, I wouldn't be able to survive for myself. Like I wouldn't be able to live with myself. And then without being an RN, I wouldn't be able to survive and provide for my family.
Right.
So at some point, it's just kind of becomes push comes to shove. You're gonna have to strike that balance and work a little harder if you feel like a part of you isn't being fulfilled.
Mm.
And but also keep in mind that your family really just wanted what's they just wanted you to be okay.
That brings me to thinking about what Logitech does with a lot of brand partnerships and why it's so important to support underrepresented creators, because of that struggle, right? Because of being able to sometimes having to choose between what you love and providing for yourself and your family because of that economic disadvantage that we have here in the US and around the world. And so brand partnerships with organizations that provide these opportunities are so important. And you saying that in that question made me realize that even more so. As we get to the
Yes.
end of our interview, and we really examined, we went in a lot of different directions, but I really appreciate that because the conversation today, it had to go in that many different directions just due to your diverse background, what you do, and just what you represent in general. It is diversity and it is belonging and it is inclusion, and that looks different in multiple different spaces. And so my last question for you is, we support a lot of creators, and we've come to the conclusion that being a creator and a storyteller and an artist and an activist, the foundation of that is really defying logic, which is what we talked about a lot in this conversation. So I want to ask you, what does defying logic mean to you?
Oh, I really love that, by the way, defy logic.
Yeah, it's
So
pretty
logic is about, it's so cool, adhering to a sort of strict rationale, right? And defying it means freedom and imagination, freedom to create. And I love freedom. I love freedom so much. I love the United States of America. I do not think that I would have had the opportunities that I still continue to experience if I were anywhere else. So I really I really value the freedom we have here. And that's why I fight for everyone else too, for their freedom to express themselves, for their freedom to create. So defying logic to me is freedom.
I love that. Very, very beautiful. And adding to our repertoire of what we look at when we think of defying logic, because every creator that comes on, they have a different answer to that question, and I always can't wait to ask it for that reason. um,
Did anybody say freedom
I don't
yet?
think anyone said freedom yet, so I'm glad that you said that. That was beautiful. So I said that was my last question, but I actually have a quick game that I usually play with everybody that comes on, that really caters to who they are,
Okay.
so we get to know them better in a couple seconds before they go,
Okay.
because we would love to hear them just talk and pick their brains. But this kind of is a fun way to end the conversation. So I know that you're a filmmaker and you love film, so I decided to make you choose between films that are great and see which one you like more.
Okay.
So we'll just jump right in so you don't get scared. The first
Sure.
two movies that I want you to choose between is The Titanic or Footloose.
Titanic.
Oh,
No,
okay.
of
Yeah, they're
course.
two very different genres, but I think they're both equally popular. Yeah, I would go with Titanic too. I agree. The
I was crying for an hour with my high school sweetheart after I saw that. So
Yeah.
it's just always, I just remember that time
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You always have to ask someone, like, where were you when you first saw Titanic?
in the movie theater.
I think I was too young to remember, but I digress.
I think so too,
The
Gabby.
next two movies,
I'm showing my age.
the next two movies, The Princess Bride or Princess Diaries.
Princess Bride, my favorite movie of all time.
Okay, okay. I have to go with Princess Diaries. I don't know. Something about that reminds me a lot of.
We love Anne
I
Hathaway for
love Anne
sure.
Hathaway. I love Anne Hathaway.
I love her.
And it's just like a modern day, story, right? Psycho or Silence of the Lambs. I know that got really dark really quick, but those are both classics.
That's very difficult. Yes, both brilliant. So, I just saw Silence of the Lambs again, like 2 months ago,
Yeah,
and I cannot believe how brilliant it is.
it
So I'm
is.
gonna have to say Silence of the Lambs because it's so brilliant. It still holds, and Jodie Foster, man.
It's a good
She's
movie.
gorgeous.
It's a good movie.
She's
And it has so
brilliant in
many
it. Oh,
underlying
so good.
meanings that you have to translate, and you can
Yeah.
only do that with time. So I think that's what's really cool.
And strong female protagonist. It's
Yes,
hard to find a strong female protagonist role like that. I love
exactly,
it.
exactly. And so I'm gonna go funny now. Groundhog Day or The Big
Okay.
Lebowski?
Oh, hard. That is a hard one. That's good. Um, m- my husband would say The Big Lebowski, but I think I like Groundhog Day. It's not as smart. I think. I
They're
don't know.
they're
It's more
both funny
like
in
Big
different.
Lebowski is more of a cinephile.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're
I'm
both
more of a
funny in
story
different ways, and I
person.
think
So
we can all identify with Groundhog Day now that we've been in this pandemic and we've been
yeah,
home
I love
for
it.
about the past
So
close
funny.
to 2 years now. I'm not gonna put that out there, but yeah, it's been real.
I just realized that I was like writing something and I was like, that wasn't 5 months ago. It wasn't like, December 2020. It was
Oh
2019.
yeah,
And I just kind of forgot.
we have all fell into that, and myself included.
So funny.
So the last one here, which I think is gonna end on a great note, is The Wizard of Oz or The King and I.
Wizard of
The
Oz.
Wizard of Oz. That's a
100%.
classic. That's a classic. I
Yeah.
agree.
Oh my goodness. It's so brilliant. What a interesting story right there.
I agree.
And Judy Garland.
Oh, yes. Beautiful movie. Well, Arabella, I want to thank you for giving a voice to those who need to be heard and visibility to those who need to be seen. For using the power of storytelling to change the world and by changing lives, and for breaking down the barriers to opportunity for future generations. So we here at Logitech salute you and continue to be so proud to partner with you.
Thank you so much,
It
Gabby.
was,
And also thank you to Chelsea Sims for the Creators for BIPOC initiative. I
yes,
just didn't get to shout out to her.
yes, yes.
She's so incredible.
Incredible,
Thank you so
incredible. We
much.
love Streamlabs and what they're doing and what a lot of our branches are doing. So I'm so thankful that we got to talk to you today and take some time out to just pick your brain and dig deeper into your story. And I hope that everyone can follow WeXL online as well as on Instagram. And if there's any other tags that you can give Arabella, I would love for you to add them in.
Yeah, together we excel. Or Stories Unite Us is probably much better for Logitech. Stories Unite Us
That is a
is
great
probably
brand
better.
for like we might have to take that. No, I'm just kidding.
No, that's okay. Actually, then let's make the hashtag creative abundance. Take it. Let's do it. Let's run with it.
Awesome, awesome. It was so nice to talk to you. And again, everybody listening and watching, you can find WeExcel on Instagram as well as online. And we will talk to you soon, Arabella. Thank you.
Thank you. Mwah. Thank you, Gabby.
Bye.
You're lovely.
Thank you for joining LogiTalk today as we continue to recognize people who are pushing beyond reason to inspire and change the world. These series will continue to share the stories of trailblazers to help inspire a new generation of creators and activists. Make sure to stay tuned for more. Next time here on LogiTalk, we will be honoring and discussing pride with another trailblazing guest that I am excited to introduce to all of you. My name is Gabby, and I will see you next time.